Ah, recording. Alright. Yeah, response video sort of to the Modern Mystic, I guess, if he's interested. I don't know. I was just thinking about this idea of zooming in or range finding, being on the same page, being able to communicate with people because you are talking about something from the same perspective, same point of view, and the necessity of that. And there's two parts to this, I guess. One argument would be is that I think there are facts or truths or something that transcend perspective. They really should. An apple should be an apple, no matter how far away you are from it. And things should mean something, regardless of whether they're past or future or present. They still have a value. They still have a definable substance, a character, a gravity, let's say, a weight. Yeah. And then the other argument would be, or the other point I'd like to get to somehow, is the idea of how you get there, how you get this idea of harmonizing, synchronizing ideas in people's heads. We have these common experiences. We have common. I made this video before with a camera, the infrared style black and white. It just wasn't, it wasn't a bad video. It's just the audio wasn't good enough, and I just knew it would be kind of irritating to watch. So I am redoing it. But yeah, that would, because it would cause sync trouble. It would. There was too many distractions, too many things that would mess up the continuity of the words, and attempting to convey the ideas, and so that's a negative thing. I mean, I sort of wanted to do that for the purpose of the video, just because it is sort of about seeing past that or getting past that. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make, is that I think if you tell the story right, obviously you can tell it in such a way as somebody's going to understand it. It's like giving somebody instructions. If you're going to explain to somebody how to drive a car, let's say they don't know how to drive a car, they don't know anything about cars, there's an efficiency to getting them there, to giving them an understanding of, okay, this thing weighs a ton, literally. It's really heavy. It takes this long for it to slow down. It takes this long for it to stop. It takes this much time to speed it up. Different little things about, don't be going too fast as you're going over the hill, because then you're just wasting fuel, because you got to use brakes, and lots of dynamics you could teach and convey an understanding. And I guess it's there's a certain efficiency to that in getting somebody through that process. And I guess there's a lot of that in conversation between people about what reality is. We have a common gravity. We have common physical forces around us. We sort of have a common life experience in terms of certain events. So you would think we would be able to convey understanding without too much trouble, because, gee, it's not that much different where you are than where I am. It's a desk, computer, air, and like I said, just life experiences, a lot of the same kind of things, disappointments, victories, all that kind of stuff, sickness and health, confidence and, low periods, an ism of some kind, an addiction period, so all these little things, we could have lots of common points and experiences, and so there should be not that hard to connect dots, because we would have common points, common dots on the page. And unfortunately, somehow the dots just don't connect the same way. When you connect your dots and I connect my dots, somehow the pictures aren't the same. So for me and the Modern Mystic, I mean, we have a lot of agreement about a lot of stuff, or at least we can communicate with each other. We have a common some common language. And some of the dots do add up. Some of them we connect them, and I think we're sort of connecting correctly, and we're sort of getting a similar image resolution thing happening. And then you get on a subject like, just seems so obvious, but anyway, like feelings, like the welfare of a feeling thing. And somehow we lose connection. Somehow there's no, the dots aren't even on the page anymore. It's like there's not even it's not even close to any kind of parallel perspective. And you know, someone like Antikantavad, who would argue that if it's over, it's over. If it's in the past, it's somehow irrelevant, as if those events didn't happen. And in my mind, as I connect the dots, those events are just as relevant as the future events. I mean, the only thing that makes the future different is that I can affect it. I can change the future. I can't change the past. But the fact of those things are the same. And the present is when the thing is happening. It's when the thing is made. It's produced. It's experienced. It's when the event takes place. But it's like you could go to a junkyard and you could think about every accident has a story. Those stories are real. They're not fake. You know, because they're in the past doesn't mean the people weren't harmed and they didn't have experience and the blood didn't spill out and all of that crap. So I just don't see how you can, I don't see how you can back off to some place where you can make it go away and say it didn't happen. Certainly we have limits in terms of I can't do 4 billion years in my head. I can't, 4 billion years, I can't put that in my head somewhere. I can't put, let's say, 500 million years or even 300 million years of sentient creatures eking out an existence. I can't do that math in my head. I can't, but I can certainly symbolize it. I can certainly iconize it. I can certainly understand it in that sense. I can have images of the Holocaust and say, ooh, 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 ooh. I can write stories. I can imagine, you know, somebody getting kicked and, you know, and they're in the mud, and I can imagine them suffocating. I can imagine lots of horror and terrible things that have happened. And I can imagine wonderful stories, glorious moments, splendor in the grass, all of those great things happening, you know. I can imagine both. And I can certainly understand, I can certainly mix it and create an understanding of some kind in terms of gravity and weight and importance. And I just don't see how, no matter how far back I go, you know, the icon I have for plague or the icon I have for smallpox, you know, the image in my head, you know, or surgery without anesthesia, or whatever the thing is. I mean, no matter how far back I go, no matter how distant I get, I just don't see how I can make it nothing. It doesn't go away. It doesn't disappear. It's once you have knowledge of it, it's always it. It's like an apple's always an apple. It doesn't matter how many galaxies I fly away to, I still know there's apples on Earth. It doesn't, I mean, the active, you know, when you're in the game, you're playing with just your senses, you know, in the present. That's all you're really, and when you're just in the visceral part of it. But the imagination, the mind, the thoughts, I mean, those dots are not limited. They are limited. No, they are. I can't, like I said, I can't do billion in my head. I can't make a billion dots. I can't make a billion anything in my head. So it's limited, but it's not limited in the same way as the physical senses are, and it's not incapable of seeing the past and seeing the present and seeing the future. and giving all of those things gravity and meaning and weight. And so I guess that's where I'm looking at it from, is it's not just about a viewpoint. It's about the sense of gravity. You know, the attraction and repulsion, the values, and those things can be understood too. They can, just as you can have a symbol or an icon to represent the Holocaust or whatever the thing is, World War II. You can have some image of tank and grenade and whatever. You can have icons for suffering or the meaning of it. I can think of vegetarianism and think about, you know, pigs and pits in Korea or something, or I can think of some other image of cow, veal, goose being force-fed. Some images will fly into my head. I have icons that represent it, and I weight it, in a relative sense, and it's hard to say that you can, I mean the point is I'm trying to make my dots, the dots that say that weighs a lot. I can feel the gravity of that suffering. One kitten, alone in the dark, wet, yeah, the gravity, I could feel the gravity of that image, just the idea of it. I can sense the gravity. And I'm saying, well, how come it's not even a blip on other people's, there's no dot, nothing, no representation, no value designation. And I don't know how they do that. I don't know how you, like I said, just because something happened, something's over and it ended, I don't see how that means it didn't happen. I mean, it's still an happening. I mean, you watch the film of Kennedy getting shot in the head, and you're just like, oh, fuck. I mean, it's 50 years old, right? I mean, it's really old news, but you can almost feel it when it's happening, and you watch it, and you just, you're saying this was a reality, and this is a real, 1 minute you're there, the next minute you're, and just the people surrounding that's, with the horror of it, to have to be there and have that happen right in front of you. I mean, just unimaginable. I mean, how can that not be a dot on somebody's page? I mean, how can you not acknowledge the significance, no matter how far away you go, what that represents as being one little piece of all that it represents, that how many millions of times this has happened throughout history, how many times is the doctor's probe poked inside of a hole, how many limbs infected, cut off in wars, and I mean, you can just but I'm just saying, you can do it. You can see it. You can feel the weight of it, the gravity, the mass. So I guess that I don't know exactly where I was going with this. I mean, I wanted to get to the point that it's doable in terms of you can have a starting point, some common place where we can start, common, some touchy-feely, popcorn. Let's just stop with start with a kernel of popcorn, and we should be able to get from here to the meaning of life. Because all we need is a few common references and a few common acknowledgments. And so if you can have the common acknowledgement that feeling good's good, but feeling bad is bad, and that every bit of it matters. It doesn't. You can't you can't go somewhere and go far enough away where it doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, you can flood it, you can create more diamonds, but it doesn't change the diamondness of the diamond. Once you know a diamond's a diamond, it doesn't matter how many diamonds you make, you still know it's a diamond, kind of a thing. And once you've acknowledged its reality, it doesn't, you know, once you know what a skull is, like, you know, is a skull, it's not gonna make the skullness go away because you put 1,000,000 of them in front of you. It's really not, in a way. You're still gonna feel the weight, and it just doesn't. I don't see how distance is going to change that. How you can ever get far enough away. I don't think there's any place to go where you can't see it anymore, and where you can't feel it anymore, if you know it's there. So I guess that's what I'm saying. But anyway, I mean, the point really is what I'm trying to get to, is that I think there is a narrative and a way of narrating where you have a more perfect efficiency in getting from what common pieces you have to some finish, some conclusion. And if you connect the dots carefully together, you can do it coherently, so you both end up with the same picture. I mean, maybe the dots are very common, like we all have 95% of the dots are exactly in the same position, and it's just the way we're connecting them, the order in which we're connecting the dots, that makes us draw a different picture. And so if you go in the right order, you can get to people's, they can identify as you go along, and they'll be carried along, and you'll end up with the same picture at the end. Yeah, maybe something like that. Anyway, so this is my contribution. The other video might have been better than this. I don't know. Yeah, it's just I'm just stuck between 2 points. The one point is that I'm trying to find a way to deal with this. What do you do when these fundamental dots are missing from the other person's page, and you've got to somehow get them to connect to a dot they don't have, which, you know, is really difficult. And then the idea of doing it well enough, saying things well enough and carefully enough that nobody makes mistakes, and that you're able to explain it well enough. It's almost like doing heart surgery over the phone. It's like I'm talking to somebody who's somewhere. Well, that's a bad reference for the modern mystic, but I guess it's a good reference in a way. But yeah, just imagine if you have to call somebody and you have to explain it over the phone, you know. Well, this is what you do, and then you cut this, and then you go, well, look for the little squiggly, oh, look for that little gooey, you know, maybe it's a little pink or it's a little brown, but, you know, it's about, and you're, you know, I mean, it's very difficult. And sometimes that's, I guess, what philosophy demands, is you're going to have to do something very difficult. And you're going to have to do it so well or so perfectly, because it's there's such a delicate order that the facts have to be placed in for them not to be perverted or distorted or altered, or so people have the car the right size and the people in the car the right, you know, so they don't misdraw the picture. Because you're almost, sometimes you're explaining to something the outline of a drawing of something they've never seen before, and so they don't know how to do it on their own, and so that makes it more difficult too. Anyway, for what it's worth, it's just it has been something rolling through my own brain, this idea of context and focus and range finding, and the idea that somehow people can live on Earth and have a different understanding of gravity. And you're almost like, well, how can we have a different understanding of gravity? You feel gravity, I feel gravity. How can we not know what gravity is? How can we not have a rational conversation about gravity? And that's sort of how I feel sometimes about having a conversation about sentience. And you're saying, how can people not acknowledge its meaning, the substance of it, the power of it? And yeah, just it is something that needs to be worked on. Yes, I just don't. I would expect these arguments I'm getting from people, like when they say harm doesn't exist. I would expect a computer to say that to me, something that doesn't feel, doesn't know what a feeling is. Well, I would expect that kind of an intelligence to give me an argument and say, I don't. What are you talking about? You feel bad. What does that mean? You know. But these are supposed to be other sentient beings, and to sit there and say harm doesn't exist, you're just like, wow, this is wacky. So anyway, till next time.